which is active now. And today, again, we will have our colleague Wim Valstar joining, and we will talk how to prepare for a winning HCM migration with the help of the SAP Readiness Check. As always, if you have questions, please put it into the Q&A section, and we will answer it afterwards. With that, I would hand it over again to you, Wim.
All right. Thank you so much, Krenar, and also a warm welcome from my side. My name is Wim Valstar, and today I will be joined by Steve Schnoll. And Steve and I are both working in the Customer Evolution Program. And the Customer Evolution Program is aiming to provide full transparency on the transformation needs of our customers and the installed base customers. So if you're looking to move your on-premise system to the next generation human capital management systems of SAP, we are listening to our installed base to identify the information needs, the tools, the methodologies, services, whatever is needed to make the journey as smooth as possible, right? And for today, we will be zooming into one of these tools because it's a super important tool to create a clear vision and also a feeling of control of the complexity to move, what you can do in terms of the preparation. And that one tool is part of an entire, let's say, journey that we can actually support you with in the different phases of your journey. So we have tools, services, and assets and information available if you're discovering the value and are preparing to go into your project. Then exploring the options and what you need to actually plan your journey. And then when you've done that, we have tools, assets, and services to facilitate your move, to deploy the options, the delivery option that of your choice. And then, of course, once you've implemented it, your journey will not stop. It's continuous improvement. It's a continuous consumption of innovation. And that's also why we have a set of tools, services, and assets when you're running the actual solutions. So for today, we will zoom into the explore and plan phase, where we look into the SAP Readiness Check for SAP SuccessFactors solutions. And it's an important starting point, and we'll get to the details of it. And we'll also switch to a live demo of the system to walk you through the capabilities, what you could expect. But in a nutshell, this is taking an MRI scan of your current on-premise installation. It gives you a lot of details, and then with that, a lot of control to manage your conversion and migration to the cloud successor product, but also it gives you a handle on what you can leave behind or how you can simplify that migration and conversion. Now, in that same phase, we also have the Evo kits as a workshop to answer all the questions that you have, and you don't have to start from scratch because when you want to have your architects make informed and calculated decisions before you start the project, we also have architectural leading practices and implementation design principles to guide you through some of the commonly asked questions with our customers. So we're going to focus on the SAP Readiness Check for SAP SuccessFactors solutions, and I want to make a couple of remarks with regards to that tool. Although the focus of the Readiness Check for SAP SuccessFactors solutions is basically what the name says, focusing on SAP SuccessFactors solutions, the results of this Readiness Check will also be applicable for moving to human capital management for S/4HANA in a private cloud environment, for instance. Just running the Readiness Check will give you a lot of detailed information that is not available in the S/4HANA Readiness Checks, because this detailed information is zooming into your on-premise installed base human capital management solution. It leverages the same framework as the S/4HANA Readiness Check. So if you can do that, you can run this readiness check as well. And it even has some shared components like the custom code analyzer, and it uses the same node. So that's also important to note, right? Any items that might be considered for simplification or de-risking the migration do apply for your migration to human capital management for S/4HANA as well. So there is like a multifunctional tool. Name might be a little bit misleading, but what's important to understand, it's giving you a very detailed view on your current installation of the on-premise solution. And that is like so valuable because we've been in touch with numerous customers, and they indicate to us that they're all bought into the cloud messaging. They want to go there, but they have the feeling that they're highly customized, and they're so customized that they can't move. But whenever we ask them for a list of customizations or integrations, then usually it becomes a little bit silent because those customizations that people think of have been, created over decades, badly documented, and the people might have left the company. So whenever there's like a thinking about customization, it's always, a feeling. And the SAP Readiness Check for SuccessFactors solutions actually, deep dives into that feeling and solidifies it with a list and a view and an analysis, so you can actually be sure. Now, what is the SAP Readiness Check for SAP SuccessFactors solutions? Well, first of all, it's a free self-service tool. And that's also good to note, right? And it allows you to analyze your current ERP HCM system to prepare for a transition. And what it does, it gives you early insights to scope and plan your transition with greater accuracy. As I said, it takes away the anxiety of moving because you have a handle on your data and what you're using, but also, more importantly, what you're not using anymore, or what you're using and what is the frequency of using it. So that's a lot of good information before you actually go into your migration planning and your migration in itself. And what's also important to note, it's designed for data privacy. So it doesn't pull any data that is personnel identifiable information. So you can rest assured that it's looking at the structures of the data, but not the actual, the data. And in that case, that gives also a little bit of reassurance that you can actually also share these results with SAP or your partner to look into the MRI scan to see, what we can actually detect in terms of flags and how we can analyze it. So in order to actually get to the readiness check for SAP SuccessFactors solutions, you have to do some preparation, and you have to run SAP nodes to actually pull the data that you can upload in the dashboard that I've just shown you. And we will take you through the dashboard in a minute. But it's important to note that there's a node for you to actually run to be able to upload it to the dashboard. And the dashboard is also included here at the bookmark link. So you can actually start using it because it's a free self-service service, right? What's also important to note is that the custom code analysis is a separate tile that you need to run a separate node for. So you're running two nodes to get the very important information loaded up in your dashboard. And then when you do that, and when you want to, go into the SAP Readiness Check, that's where you go to SAP for me to get actually to the Readiness Check. So that's where it's located and where it's at your disposal. So with that, we're switching over to a live demo that will be, handled by Steve to talk you through the process, but also what you could expect from the Readiness Check.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Wim. And I will share my screen. And let's have a look at the demo of the SAP Readiness Check for SuccessFactors solutions. So this is, we're going to treat this a little bit like a cooking show. So we're going to show the cake fully baked, and then we're going to go back and look at the steps that it takes to produce this. So what we're looking at here is the homepage of a completed readiness check for SuccessFactors solutions. And as you can see, it produces a beautiful graphical environment that's simple to navigate through. It's clickable, it's drillable. There are 9 tiles of information that get displayed across the screen. And I'll just scroll briefly from the top, where we start with an employee overview, administrative structures, and process results, showing the processes in the hire to retire area that are being run in the customer's environment. Then we see organizational structure overview, organizational structure objects, important HCM data, and coming down to the last row, HCM specific custom objects, interfaces, and custom code analysis, as Wim mentioned just a moment ago. We'll drill into a couple of these. We won't go through them all in full detail, but first I want to show you some of the system capabilities that are available in the header. Some of the customers that run this may run it multiple times or may run it across multiple environments. So we give the customer the ability to mark a version as their favorite. In addition to the graphical display, there is the option to generate a document that provides the underlying source data in an easy-to-read Microsoft Word document, as well as Excel files. And you'll see the kinds of data that are included in the Excel files within the application. If the customer wants to run a follow-up analysis, if they've run it once, they've remediated or made adjustments to the system, they can update this analysis on a self-service basis as well, just by uploading a new file here. There are other controls and capabilities. This technical properties icon shows a little bit of information about the customer, the type of system being analyzed. In this case, we're working on an older demo system that happens to be based on a Sybase database. More typically, your customers will see something like a HANA database here. But it's very helpful to make sure that the environment details are easy to access and easy to display. And then if the product is at end of maintenance or end of mainstream maintenance, there's an indicator provided as well directly within the tool to remind them that maybe it is appropriate for them to be doing an update. The person who initiates the readiness check gets one additional icon here called Settings. And Settings allows the user to share the readiness check with other trusted parties. So in this case, if I wanted to share the readiness check with Wim, I would just type in Wim's email and then decide whether I want him to have read-only rights, which is how it's set by default, or we could also give him the ability to update this readiness check and or delete it. So the permissioning can be adjusted according to the individual and the role that they're playing. These could be people within your company or people within a partner organization just as well. And you can add additional folks. So we could add Krenar, we could add others as simply as typing in their email address here. And I won't go through it in full detail. And if you decide that you want to change those permissions, it's as simple as clicking the X to delete somebody from the permissioning. So that is one method that exists for sharing this data on a very granular basis. And when we show how the readiness check is created, we'll show you another way to share this information, to have the customer share it with their SAP team, which is an important step in the process, what we call the tick the box step, which I'll show you in a few minutes after we go through the readiness check. The last capability that I want to share with you from the header section is this Learn More tab. And the Learn More tab is available not only at the header level, but within each one of these tiles. And it provides customer-specific, context-specific information based on what's in their system. And so we have recommended next steps with links to important related topics. In this case, the first link available is to the EvoKit workshop for HCM. We also provide links to the transition planning documents and the advisory service and other capabilities within the notes within the system. There's also some general information about the various portlet and tile capabilities, giving an overview of what each one signifies, and then some remarks at the end here. So very helpful self-service information is available within the tool so that customers can learn more about what they're looking at. As we go back to the individual tiles, and I'll just drill into 3 of them for detail, it would surprise you perhaps that it's a challenge for some customers to understand how widely is their system deployed. So when we click into this first tile, we see some interesting information. We see how many employees total are in the system, and those employees are spread across a number of countries, in this case 42. It's a demo system. And it also will show how many of those employee records are active employees versus employee records that might not pertain to active populations. So a lot of historical HCM customers have data that goes back to the year of the system deployment, and it's helpful for them to understand how much of that might be archive data versus active data. And within each one of these tiles, there is the capacity to drill further to get additional information. So if we want to see the number of employees in Germany, it's as simple as clicking on that bar to get the exact number. And all of those details can then be exported directly from within this portlet to a spreadsheet for further analysis. And with the table settings, you can see the columns of information that are available within that data set. So very simple to navigate, very powerful way to organize customer data. And this really makes the process for understanding what the customer has deployed behind their firewall simpler than ever, faster than ever, and free for any customer that's under maintenance. The Learn More text within this portlet is specific to the contents of this portlet. So you can see that the advice here and the next steps and general information are different from what we saw on the homepage. So there's self-service guidance available within the tool. At the same time, we strongly recommend that customers bring in the SAP radiologist to interpret their MRI and not rely completely on Dr. Google to interpret their results. So that's why we offer the EvoKit workshop, which should be paired with the Readiness Check as our primary calls to action for the installed base customers. Process results here shows whether they're running time management, travel management, personnel cost planning, and other capabilities within the system. And as we drill or look further into the HCM specific custom objects tile, this is where customers will find their primary custom info types, which in the language of the HRIS system are some of the custom extensions that have built. And it always blows customers away when you can take them in as simple as one click to what are called the 9000 series info types. These are typically customer-specific info types that have been created in the system, and they're grouped for easy access and easy analysis by just coming into this tile. And the only thing SuccessFactors about this readiness check, in truth, is the name. So all of the data that you're seeing here is a reflection of what's in the on-premise or the private cloud environment. There's actually not a readiness check that operates within a SuccessFactors environment because the customer is already in the public cloud. And so this is really insights specifically into their legacy system in advance of a move. And you can see there are other custom info types. There are extensions. There are payroll-specific capabilities, personnel calculation rules, and other aspects of the system, all grouped here for easy review and analysis by the subject matter experts who are scoping the move. Coming back to the main page briefly, and then jumping into interfaces. This is, again, a demo system. It wouldn't be typical for a customer to have 6,000 interfaces when they have 4,500 employees overall, but we do have customers who have up to 14,000 interfaces in their environment, among the largest, most complex customers. We have customers that have loaded 2.5 million employee records into this system, and it's run really, really smoothly. So when you drill into the interfaces, they are grouped by the interface type, whether it's IDOC or web service interfaces, remote function calls, business warehouse extractors, OData interfaces. There are different types of interfaces reflected here, and it's easy to go through and make sure that nothing gets left behind as you're scoping what needs to move to the cloud, or importantly, what can be left behind because it's no longer relevant. In many cases, there are leftover artifacts in companies that might have divested a business unit, but there's still content that relates to that business unit. There's no point in moving that if they're not part of the company anymore, or if that can be archived off. So it can really help a customer to streamline their move by coming in here and knowing what's relevant to move still. So this provides the overview of the tiles of the readiness check. And what I'd like to do now is switch to the readiness check homepage. So we just saw the cake fully baked in the cooking show analogy. Now we're going to go back and look how a customer can start a new analysis. And so after navigating to the readiness check homepage, in this case, I've got system privileges that show multiple analyses here. If the customer hasn't run analyses, this section would be collapsed. We see that there are several different kinds of readiness checks that they could run, including, as Wim showed you before, the SuccessFactors variant of the readiness check. And it's as simple as clicking on this Start New Analysis button to initiate a new analysis. Here we would typically say the analysis name, put in the customer name, put in their test instance ID, and that naming convention can vary, but you typically want to identify whether that's a production environment or a test environment. We recommend the customer run it in production or a recent copy of the production environment. And when you type in a few letters, you can down select from a list of companies that will ultimately bring you to the customer specific information. So you populate the data here, and then you upload the analysis file that's been generated by the note that's been run in the production environment. That is an XML file that the customer uploads. As Wim mentioned, it contains no personally identifiable information. And so when that file gets uploaded into the system, the customer is obligated to click on terms of use. You can see the asterisk next to the 4 fields that are required. But super importantly, whenever you help a customer start this process, we also ask that they include this authorization and tick the box here. When they do that, this lets SAP assist in the interpretation of the readiness check results. So by providing this acknowledgement, it says that the readiness check results can be shared for support, services, and marketing. By practice, we do not do any marketing to our customers based on their sharing this readiness check, so they won't get bombarded by emails. What it does allow is the SAP expert team, including solution architects, to read the results and prepare for a working session like the EvoKit workshop, in which we can provide the customer with interpretation, recommendations, and intelligent follow-up questions based on what has been found within the system. So those are the capabilities within the tool that are important for you to know. Making sure that this authorization is provided up front, saves the customer from having to individually identify each person at SAP and add them manually, as I showed you a few minutes ago. So this is a quick overview of the Readiness Check framework. And what I could also show you is that we have a document that is generated, and I will share that now. This is a look at the Word file that a customer gets. It's typically about 100 pages long. And as you scroll through here, it provides a really helpful summary of all of the data and all of the categories that are within the customer system. And you can see in the navigation panel on the left-hand side, the various tiles and the content within each one of those 9 tiles within the system. And as we scroll through the document, we can see that it provides a really nice summary of what data is in the system. Here we see that employee overview, the number of countries, the number of regions for active employees versus total employees, and it makes for a really convenient reference guide that comes out of the box from the system with a single click. So I won't take you into the individual spreadsheets that go with this, but when you generate the document, you get both the Word doc as well as the spreadsheets, all downloaded in one zip file. Easy peasy. So that if the customer wants to do additional analysis, they now have the source data at their fingertips. And with that, I think that concludes the demo section for now, and I'll turn it back over to Wim to continue with the presentation. So thanks.
Thank you, Steve. So Steve already mentioned it a couple of times, right? If you're looking at, the outcome and the analysis of the SAP Readiness Check, I think it's, just good practice to actually also look into the data and the information that you got together with the SAP experts. And in order to do so, Steve already mentioned, you can do a readiness check or an SAP customer evolution kit for human capital management with us. And in those sessions, you can ask one-on-one questions with the SAP experts to actually look into your data, also signal what flags or flag what stands out to us, and actually have an in-depth conversation about, okay, what can you leave behind? What does the on-premise world look like in the cloud? Is there a place for your data? Do you still need customizations that you already created? Is there a place in the standard solution for that? So you need someone that actually can, knows both worlds and guide you through what you actually can see from your analysis. As we mentioned, we have a customer engagement for human capital management as a standalone engagement, and that's we'll get into the details for that. But there's also a lot of customers that are looking to move ERP to S/4HANA and want to include HR as one of the major line of business solutions in that equation. So the Readiness Check for SuccessFactors solutions can also be used in a combined Evo kit to look at ERP and human capital management, as we call it, the 2-in-1 Evo kit. And combined with other tools and assets that we have available, this provides you with a great first step before you actually go into your project of moving your solution, on-premise solution. Now, to zoom in a little bit on the SAP Customer Evolution Kit for Human Capital Management, it's just 3 sessions of 2 hours. And in those 3 sessions, we kind of funnel our way through from a high level to a medium level to a very detailed level of information and discussion with the SAP experts. And basically, it's an engagement with professional services people, solution architects, so you can ask any question you want. And in the 3rd session, we will actually also do a readout of the readiness check results to talk you through similarities and differences between the on-premise solution and the cloud solution, and also to help you drive discussions and decisions on what you can leave behind and what you need to come with you during the migration and conversion. So that's 3 sessions of 2 hours kind of engagement. But we also do, as I said, an integrated engagement for customers that are looking to move ERP to S4 and have human capital management as one of the most important modules in their on-premise system to move with the ERP system. So we devised a 5 days engagement that goes into a lot of details, again with the SAP expert, but then the 4th day will actually address all the topics that we would address in a standalone human capital management engagement as well. So this is a highly efficient way to get information and get all your answers to the questions you might have of moving your ERP together with human capital management based on tangible analysis coming from the readiness check. And then what's also very important, because that will provide you the details to prepare your transition, right? But we also know that there's architects within our companies that want to get educated, want to make up their minds about some of the decisions and the design decisions before you actually go into the system and the actual implementation of the system. And also for that, you are not starting from scratch. So we have architectural leading practices to, let's say, educate your architects within your company on the most complicated topics. And there's answers for that, written down in documents together with our product management and real life experiences from implementations. The same goes for the implementation design principles, because sometimes, in everyday life, sometimes customers have questions and want to know, we want to keep this, but how do we do that in the new systems? And yes, the system is flexible enough to incorporate or to do everything you want to, but if you do it as designed, then the probability that it works and is successful and provides you value in a shorter time frame is more likely. So what we also did together with our partners and customers and product management based on real life implementations, we've also answered a lot of the common, the frequently asked questions from implementations. How do I manage pay scale, base salary increases? How do I manage indirect valuation of pay components? So it's in-depth detail things, but it's really crucial to get an understanding of that before you go into your conversion and migration to the new solution. So everybody has, let's say, a good knowledge about where we're going and how it's supposed to be working. And then when you're actually, are prepared enough based on, the results from the readiness check, and you got a handle and you got a feel of what you want to do, then of course it's also important that there's tools available to help you do the data migration. And in our previous webinar, we already talked about, the embedded lounge activities where you get a demo instance. We've already talked about the best practices that are there for you, like in a process library. It's available to you, so you can take that as a starting point to describe your processes and manage your processes. But these are also the starting point of the implementation and the configuration of the product. I just want to also look into some of the services that we provide from a professional services point of view, because that's also an opportunity, and go into some of the data migration tools that are available to you that certainly be worth considering. So first of all, I want to touch on our professional services from an SAP point of view. We do have a transition planning services that actually utilizes the output of the readiness check, but then goes into a lot of detail across all the different steps that we could support you with in terms of architectural vision, like the as is and the to be, how to get there in transformation roadmap, how we would make an implementation roadmap, what kind of transition scenario would be best for you. So that's very detailed It's very, collaborative with a professional services team, and it could lead up to, creating a statement of work even that you can actually, put out there for your partners, or you can even, then start implementing with professional services. But this is taking it, one step further down the line in terms of detailing and getting to the actual planning and project of a migration. It's available from an SAP SuccessFactors professional services point of view, but you could also do that with your preferred partner, of course. I think the main thing is that the readiness check results is one of the major inputs to drive that in a manageable and controllable way. Well, we've already, touched on some of the tools that we are providing, but SAP is also providing migration tools. So there's an info partner migration tool for human capital management, core HR to Employee Central, and it comes for free with the Employee Central license. If you're moving HR or human capital management at the same time as your ERP to a private cloud instance, then SAP SMLT, landscape transformation software and the migration cockpit might be for you. On the other hand, there's also partner solutions that are very agile and give you a lot of control about your, standalone human capital management payroll move to SuccessFactors or maybe the private cloud. These are the tools that are available in the SAP store, but we also know that a lot of the system integrators or the services partners that you might be working with have their own tools and methodology. I think the main thing is that there are tools available. It's not required to do a re-implementation, but you can actually migrate your current on-premise human capital management system to SAP SuccessFactors. And all these tools that are available have their own pros and cons, and we will invite you to look at them and to see which approach works best with your organization or your service partner that you prefer to work with for your migration. With that, we're getting to the wrap up and the call to action. I hope it's clear that we don't want to leave any customer behind, and that's why we have the SAP Customer Evolution Program, right? And we have that for all lines of businesses, and we are looking at this from a human capital management point of view. There are migration tools, assets, and services available to ease your migration, but also take away the anxiety about migrating to the cloud, right? And taking away that anxiety requires running the SAP Readiness Check. So please do that and get a detailed view of your current HCM on-premise installation, your customizations, and also what you can leave behind to ease the migration and conversion. And if you do that, when you've done that, discuss the outcomes with an SAP or a partner and with the experts that actually know both worlds. Because if you don't know what you don't know, right? And if you don't know the SAP cloud solutions yet, but you do have a firm grasp of your on-premise installation, then it's good to, be advised by the doctor that interprets your MRI to talk about similarities, differences, what to take into account. But having that discussion with someone that knows both worlds is vital to the success of your project. With that, we want to thank you for your attention today, and hopefully you will start your journey to the cloud, well, today or maybe tomorrow. That's fine too. Let's open it up for questions if there are any. Krenar, I don't know. I haven't been able to look at the chat.
Let me have a look.
None in the chat or in the Q&A yet. We've been monitoring, but people, don't be shy. If you have questions about anything that you've seen here, please let us know. And feel free to unmute if you prefer to ask verbally.
Sure. I mean, if you want to unmute, now it's the moment to unmute or type your question in the chat. In the meanwhile, just want to make you aware of those two links that you see here. And we have one question: is customers running on HR MiniMaster also leverage the readiness check services?
The answer to that is yes. Customers who are running the MiniMaster can leverage the readiness check services, and we're happy to work with those customers. We would love to know what else they could be using from SAP and SuccessFactors. So that's a great conversation starter to identify what's going on in their legacy environment. Quite often we find that when customers run the readiness check, there are things that they've done to customize the system that wouldn't need to be customized anymore if they came back to standard SuccessFactors capability. In the on-prem HCM world, for example, if a customer wanted to do concurrent employment, that would be a project. And every time they upgrade and test the system, they'd have to review those capabilities. In SuccessFactors, concurrent employment capabilities are supported natively and don't require customization. They can be configured. The same is true of other areas within the system where, for example, as Wim showed with some of the guidance documents, there are customers with collective bargaining agreements with workers' councils or unions that provide automatic wage progression or grade progression based on years of service or number of hours worked or other formulas that historically on-prem customers would have to have customized. And that's a big burden, it's a big expense. And within SuccessFactors, that can be configured to follow the rules automatically. And so it's a huge time saver for customers when they identify these kinds of customizations. And when the experts that we bring in during the Evo Kit can say, you're doing it the old way, the hard way, here's an ROI to move to SuccessFactors. So it can help you to build a business case. It can help the customer to simplify their support requirements, and it can produce a much better end user experience than the old custom way of doing things delivered. So thanks for the question about the MiniMaster, and yeah, very happy to discuss with anybody who may have a customer use case, how we can best support that.
Okay. Yeah, yes, these customers running SAP ECC and have customized the solution tremendously. They have contractors and the project labor configured on the project systems application module. I think that's just to follow up on the question.
Yeah.
Okay. We have another one from another participant. Thank you for a clear and thorough discussion of the SAP Readiness Check for SAP SuccessFactors. A lot of information shared. Thanks again.
Okay. Well, you're welcome. It's our pleasure.
Okay. Just give 1 or 2 minutes for other question. In the meanwhile, next week we will continue to have a closer look on the CRM move. So the next session would be again next week, Tuesday, where we will start to have a look at the CRM move and to see what the SAP Commerce Cloud can offer, and not only Commerce Cloud, but also the Sales and Service Cloud. In the meanwhile, do we have other questions? I don't see any, but I mean, you can always reach out to Wim or to Steve if you have follow-up questions. And with that, let me stop the recording.